What's going on? What's going on, everybody? So, there's been a lot of stuff going on in pop culture as of late. A lot of these conversations that are being had are what I would consider some overdue conversations. One of the big things that's most notable is Jess Hilarious's response to the whole transgender, cisgender conversation. One thing that I just wanted to add, or I guess, so for what it's worth, I just can't get off into the concept of trans women are women, trans men are men. I mean, I get it. You feel a way, you wake up every day feeling like you were assigned the wrong gender at birth. My whole thing is this. At what point in time do we draw the line in the sand to say that when we are playing into these ideas, or we're buying into these ideas, or adopting these ideas, when is it at the detriment of actual women? Because you don't really see trans men trying to compete in male sports. Not that there isn't, but it's not in the headlines. I don't really see trans men fighting to get into men's restrooms. Again, not saying that it isn't. You just don't see it in the headlines as much. I feel as if at some point in time we have to really question ourselves to ask, how do we let this get this far? I heard somebody say, oh, well, you have to be very careful what you say because this type of speech can be dangerous. Well, let me draw the line in the sand here. I don't know a single person who is calling to action to hurt, harm, or do anything out of the ordinary to people who identify as trans. If anything, I would tell anyone who is listening to this that if you do identify as trans, or you know someone who identifies as trans people are people. They have the same right to live and the same right to exist, the same right to the same laws that govern each and every last one of us. However, one thing that I'm not a fan of, that I will never be a fan of, and that I've never been a fan of since the beginning of this rather insane argument, is the notion that one person's belief should be able to trump somebody else's. I'm not a fan of compelled speech. What I mean by compelled speech is, if you decide that you want to use certain gender pronouns to describe yourself, that's perfectly fine. You should be allowed to use that. And those people who are sympathizers of the community or are actively in the community who decide that they want to partake should be allowed to partake. No problems, no questions asked. But those of us who don't want to partake shouldn't be looked down upon when we say, hey, no thank you. It's not intended to be a means of disrespect, more so of I don't care for that. That's not something that I'm into. If I was a Christian man and a Muslim was to come to me and want to start giving me scripture from the Quran, I should have the right to say, hey, that's not for me. I'm good with my Christian Bible and with my Christian ideals, and I'll be just fine with that. And vice versa. No one's thoughts, ideas, or beliefs should have the right to trump over anybody else's in a society like ours. However, I do feel that I don't have the right to hurt you, to harm you, to do something against you because I don't agree with you. I don't believe that it should be automatically assumed that because I don't agree with you, that the things that I'm saying are dangerous. You have to understand that people who do bad things are already going to do bad things. Nothing I said is going to fuel them. It was already in them to do. But I don't think that most people, and I really mean, I don't think that most people want bad to happen to the trans community or the LGBT community at large. I think, like most things, we don't want it in our schools. We don't want it in our school book curriculum. We want to be able to educate our children and raise our children the way that we want them to be raised. And as they become adults, they can choose for themselves what direction that they want to go. I don't see that being unreasonable to say, hey, you know what? Certain exposures I don't want my children to have. I truly feel that there are certain things that I, as a parent, should have the right to decline. And I think that a lot of times these things get misconstrued. They get taken way out of context, way out of context. And before you know it, we find ourselves in a storm to where we're trying to have an emotional battle about very rational things. The protection of my children. I am concerned about the protection of women who go into restrooms and somebody who may be pretending to be trans going into this restroom and something happening to one of these women. It is a reality, it's a real reality. And as a parent, and as a man who openly stands up and defends the rights of human beings, particularly in this case, the right for women to be women, not cisgender women, but women. If you are trans, you're trans. Men are men. Women are women. And that's that. I do feel that in the midst of trying to defend people's rights to be who they feel that they are, you have to draw the line in the sand and say enough is enough of the nonsense. And that's what I'm here to say today. I think that it's time to really say enough is enough of the nonsense. Women should not have to defend their place to exist because some men believe that they are assigned the wrong body. I don't think that that's okay. I think many people don't think that's okay. And for those who do think that it's okay, it's okay. But you don't have the right to force your ideology on others. Those who choose not to partake should have the right to not partake, and that should be perfectly okay. Despite anything else, you have to take into consideration that if you continue to push, it only gets worse. And at what point in time do we call the tipping point? The tipping point doesn't have to always be violent. The tipping point doesn't always have to be a measure of aggression. But at some point in time, the sympathy that people have for members of that community, sometimes the alliances, the allegiances that people have with that community, that you keep pushing and pushing and pushing and forcing, or giving people the reason to believe that you're pushing and forcing, it may ultimately backfire one day. And that support that you were looking for may no longer be there. All I'm saying is, at some point in time, we have to get back to common sense and get back to rational thought processes. Get back to the understanding that men are men, women are women. What you believe while in your body is your business. That's my time. Peace.